Hi, yoga teacher trainers. My name is Michelle Benton, and this is your introduction video for not only the first 15 hours, the level 1 part of our 30-hour yin yoga teacher training, but kind of in general. It'll be an introduction of who I am, what our lineage is, and lineage in yoga means our teachers' teachers, how we learned this process, and how this process is going to work once we get in the studio or are online. So this is going to be our introduction video for both. So welcome. I'm super excited for you, whether you are advancing your teacher training from your 200-hour or any other training that you've done already, or starting the journey. Even if you're not going to teach, this is a really big step in starting your journey to expanding your knowledge, expanding your depth into the yoga practice. And I'm super excited for you. I'm glad that you picked me. You picked me, yay. So glasses are gonna come on and off because I am at that age. You can see the reflection. Just so you know, I am in Las Vegas. I haven't been here in 17 years. I'm actually going to be taking a vacation. But this was kind of like the perfect place to film because it's quiet and I don't have phone calls coming in, and I might give you a little tour when we're done with this video of what I see outside my window because it's pretty spectacular. And then I'm going camping in the desert, whole other story. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Again, my name is Michelle, and we're going to tell you the background of where we come from. So there are a lot of yin yoga teacher training out there. I'm glad you picked mine, and I'm glad you picked mine because I have studied this for a long time. I'm going into my 10th year of teaching, and in those 10 years, I've taught yin the whole time. I've taught vinyasa the whole time. I'm adding other things to my repertoire, but I have 10 years and probably 3,000 hours of teaching this style of yoga, yin yoga. Let me tell you where it comes from. So we can go back, it's one of the newest styles of yoga. We can go back into 80s and 90s. And my teacher is Joe Barnett. His teacher is Paul Greeley. And you have a book to read. It's Paul and Susie Greeley's book. And we can go through the history briefly. You can read the rest in the book or see it online. But basically, Paul Greeley had been a yoga teacher for years. And he was mostly Hatha, probably Ashtanga a little bit. That was a big thing in California back then. And he also was getting into martial arts, or had been into them. And there was a man that was a local guy in Southern California named Paulie Zink. Now, Paulie Zink, after his martial arts classes, his trainings with his students, I think they call them student, he would do these long stretches that look like yoga stretches, but they would hold them for a long time, and it was to open up the connective tissues because they had already worked their muscles. So Paul Greeley asked him, can I study with you? In the meantime, he's also studying with some of his other gurus, studying meridians and channels of energy in the body based on Eastern philosophies. So he decided, after studying with Paul Greeley, or Paulie Zink rather, and a couple of other people for a while, that he is going to teach other yoga teachers this process. And still, it's just long-held postures. We're working on connective tissues. We're working on breathing. We're taking you into deeper meditation and opening up the energy channels inside the body, the meridians. And Sarah Powers, lovely woman, Sarah Powers, takes his teacher training. She goes out, go forth like I want you to do. Go forth and teach. I teach you, you teach other people. She goes forth and teaches, and finally somebody, because as Americans and Westerners, we love to label things. So she gets this question, says, what is this called? She goes, well, it doesn't have a name. It's not Ashtanga, it's not Hatha, it's not Vinyasa. And they said, well, we got to call it something. So she comes up with, well, the rest of our practice is very yang or yang. So it's very yang. It's very dynamic. And so let's call it yin. Yin is passive. It is the opposite. It's what we do together to create a wholeness of being. And it stuck. It stuck. This is not a copyrighted name. This is not a trademark name. This is just what we've called it for now 20, 25 years. It's Paul Greeley, Paulie Zink. Everybody uses that name now, and it's fantastic. What I would like to tell you, though, is this is, like I said, not copyrighted or trademarked. So there are going to be interpretations. The way I teach you and the way you teach your students is going to be rooted in the way Paul and Susie Greeley teach, because they taught Joe Barnett, who taught me 60 hours of training with Joe Barnett and a lot of practice in this. What you take from me and carry forward is going to be your own interpretation, and you have every right to do that. So what Paul has been very specific about is that we don't put any trademarks or legalizations on this, because he's seen how other people have gotten in trouble doing that, and it kind of blows up on them in the end. This is yoga. This is a 2,000-year-old practice, and you don't necessarily want to trademark it. So you're going to take other yin classes probably. You're going to see other yin yoga teacher trainers who do things in a different way than I do, who lead a class in a different way than I do, and maybe concentrate on different ideals of yin yoga. The three things I want you to take away from this and always keep in your core of teaching or practicing is, number one, the smaller movements before you're in longer held postures. Number two, the rebound pose, which you will learn down the road. The rebound pose is very important. It is woven in to the sequences after each longer held posture. And it's doesn't seem like much in the beginning of a sequence, but at the end, when you take these 60-second breaks called a rebound, you'll see and feel how it affects your practice and how it affects you physically, energetically, emotionally. Also, what I would like you to do is bring in the dynamic versus passive into your training so that people understand you're just not lying there in a pose for 5 minutes just to lie there. There is something happening. So learning the difference between dynamic and passive poses and how they affect the body, because you're going to go deep into connective tissues, fascia, ligaments, tendons. So for our first 15 hours, this is your foundation. We're creating a foundation for the rest of your practice, for the rest of your teacher training. And that foundation is going to be, number one, breath work. Number two, meditation. We bring meditation in because we are wired, especially as Westerners, we are wired to move. We are wired to be on point. We are wired to be in our sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, or freeze. And the meditation and the breath work are going to help you stay still long enough that the body can do what it needs to do, which is move us into parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is rest and digest. And that's when we start to create a situation for our body physically to prevent injury, to heal. We cannot use the word healers, that is a medical term, but we create the situation where your body can start to heal. But we also go into the rest part, which is better sleep, the digest part, meaning that your internal organs are working the way they're supposed to. And then eventually you get into the deeper meditation where you weave everything together, the physical, the emotional, the energetics, to create homeostasis. So that's the foundation. We're building on breath work, then meditation, and then the 10 basic poses. In the level 1 training, we're going to go through the 10 basic poses. Can you believe it? There's only 10 basic poses in all of Yin Yoga. And we will break those down. We will learn how to use props with them. We will learn how to teach them. Now, learning how to teach doesn't mean that you're going to stand up in front of the whole group and have to teach a sequence. This basic class, you're going to get scripts that you can read from so you can learn how to start cueing people into the poses. You get to practice them on your dog, your spouse, a tree. It's fine because you're reading from a script. And so it's nothing that I want you to stay up at night thinking about that you have to teach a class. This is not what we're going to do at first. And then we're also going to get into the chakra system. And starting from the ground up, just like we do in the second level with the 8 limbs of yoga. So that's just our basic level. Now we go into the second weekend, which is level 2 training. And level 2 training is going to be building on that foundation. And when we build on the foundation, now you're going to get into alternate poses. We're going to get into anatomy trains. Anatomy trains are how the connective tissues bring the whole body as one. So spiral line of the body, back line of the body, front line of the body. And all of this ties together into the energetic system. Chi, the chakras, the meridians, opening up pathways, because now that have been studying fascia for a significant amount of time in the physical fitness industry, which yoga is part of, especially in the Western side, we're getting a better understanding of how our whole body is connected to the fascia. Not only does the fascia keep us together, it surrounds the body, but as you start to open up the parts that are sticky, are tense, are congested, then you start to open up the energetic system. You breathe deeper. You get into parasympathetic nervous system faster. So that is going to be into level 2. You'll do some practice teaching. Again, please don't panic about that. It's all scripted. If you want to go off script, that's fine, especially for those of you who are already teachers. And that is the basis of our yoga practice. And then who am I? Who am I? Who are any of us really? So one of the things that most teacher trainings do from the very beginning, you sit down, everybody goes around a big circle, they introduce themselves. And it takes about 2 hours of valuable time in our training. So I will introduce myself to you now. And then once we're in practice, what I like people to do is find somebody that you've never met before. Introduce yourself, get to know them, have coffee, sit down and have lunch together, but not to use valuable time that you have paid for in a teacher training where we go around a circle and tell our whole life story. But you do want to know who I am because you trusted me enough to pay money to come to this teacher training. So I have been practicing since 2006. I actually started practicing before. If anybody remembers VHS tapes, yeah. 20 years ago, I bought Rodney Yee's AM PM. I think it was Cynthia Page, not Cynthia Page. Cindy Lee. AM PM yoga on VHS, and I watched that. And I was by myself, and it was like, it was okay. And then I started going to a studio in Lake Mary, Florida, 2006. And that's where the love came. The first time that I was in a Shavasana was such an emotional and energetic release, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but I just know I love this. I want to keep doing this. And then I deepened my practice over 5 years. Workshops, I've worked with some amazing teachers, Doug Swenson, David Williams, Catherine Budig. There's some amazing teachers that have been in my background even before I started teacher training. Sometime in early 2010, I believe it was, I was given the opportunity to take a 200-hour teacher training. And when I say given the opportunity, I had a full-time corporate job. I had been the executive vice president of a company that sold food to restaurants. Not really satisfied with where my career was going to end up going. I was in the beginning. I loved that job. And the way that industry changed was not fulfilling to me, not spiritually, definitely. And then physically, it was getting very demanding, mentally getting very demanding. And the opportunity came to me because my mother said to me, hey, you've mentioned this teacher training 3 or 4 times to me. How about for Christmas, I give you the down payment? I said, are you kidding me? My mother has never talked to me about things like this. She doesn't know about yoga. She doesn't care about yoga. But she recognized something that I couldn't even recognize at that point, that there was a path that was calling me. So I started the path with no intentions of teaching, but I wanted to help people of my parents' age who were starting to have knee issues, hip issues, things like that. So I did this 200-hour training at Full Circle in Winter Park, Florida. My teacher was Saraswati Devi, who has since passed, and Christine Northcote. Wonderful training, very comprehensive. We did some yin training in that, but it was a lot of hot yoga, heated vinyasa, I should say, not hot like the hot 90 yoga, but heated vinyasa. It was a lot of Ashtanga, and our anatomy was kind of about this much. And then from there, I graduated. I'm still doing what I do, selling food to restaurants, and walked into a studio, and a friend of mine said, she owned the studio, and she said, I need a teacher on Sunday nights. I lost my teacher, and it's yin, not a big deal. You can just sit down and, put them in poses for 5 minutes. And I said, let me think about it. And I came back in 7 days later. She says, great, I already put you on the schedule. I said, I didn't even say yes. She said, you're saying yes. So from there, we built that Sunday night class, an hour-and-a-half yin yoga class, and I studied online and didn't know if I knew what I was doing or not, but I built that class and I built the community. And then Joe Barnett came along, and Joe Barnett was at Altamont Springs Yoga teaching a 40-hour yin yoga teacher training. He has had, at that point, 12 years of studying with Paul and Susie Greeley. And after I took the 40-hour teacher training, I was really proud of myself because I was like, I didn't do so bad. I was doing a pretty good job for those first 2 years. However, he gave me that foundation that you're going to get now, that foundation of meridians and chakras and the rebound pose and breaking down a yin pose and why we do this and how it's supposed to feel. We're not going for an aesthetic. We're looking at a target area instead of the way something is pictured. So at that point, the studio I taught at was closing, and I was invited to teach and start a yin yoga teacher program with my teacher, Mylinda Morales, at Altamont Springs Yoga. And so we built this program. We built this yin program and took another 20 hours of advanced training with Joe, and then was invited to take a 500-hour training. We call it 615 with Mylinda. She's pretty strict. So at this point, I've had almost 800 hours of teacher training, 4,000 hours of teaching public classes, workshops, and teacher trainings and retreats. And I've added on. I've taken what I've learned from Joe, what Joe learned from Paul and Susie, and I've expanded it because I've been able to observe students over the past 10 years in this practice. And I've also studied how the way yoga is moving and the way physical fitness is moving, we're getting back to the true health and wellness and not just who can do a one-armed handstand on social media. So I'm bringing all of that to you, and then you can take what you learn from me and move forward in your own practice or take it into your own public classes. So that's where we're at for now. I will catch up with you all very soon. Your reading is posted in, your reading requirements are posted in what I'm going to send you after you sign up for the training. Make sure you have your props and make sure you have a big smile on your face when we see you. Namaste.